Conflict. We all have it. Most of us don't like it. Most of us wish we could do it better. So think about the last time you were in a tense conversation at work, maybe with a peer or a direct report or someone above you, and you felt that shift happen in you, right? Your chest tightens, your thinking gets a little foggy, and you either go quiet or you feel like ramping things up. You know neither of those responses is what you want, but when we're in conflict, there's a lot going on that we don't feel like we have much control over. Our brains get hijacked, and most of us navigate entirely on instinct because few of us were taught skillful approaches to conflict. Sure, maybe we were given some rules, maybe a policy, sometimes a script, but not the real stuff. The internal tools that help us show up as the leader we really want to be when it counts. My guest today has spent decades building exactly those tools. Maryse Postlewaite is the founder of TLC Pathways and the creator of the Conflict Resolution Fundamentals course, developed in collaboration with Kid Power International, which is a self-paced program built around 5 keys that address what's really happening when we find ourselves in conflict. How we should build trust, how to communicate, how to cooperate, how to take different perspectives, and what our nervous systems are doing underneath all of that. She's a certified international Montessori educator and has trained with children's creative response to conflict, positive discipline, kid power, mindfulness, and cultivating authentic communication. She has delivered this work across the globe. What I love about Maryse is that she brings radical optimism and a deep, grounded belief in people's capacity to grow, which is exactly the energy this conversation calls for. I don't want to wait any longer. Here's my conversation with Maryse Postlewaite. Welcome, Maryse. So nice to see you.
Claire, I've been looking forward to this. Thank you. Thank you for this invitation.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I know it is because we have great conversations whenever we have time. And also because conflict is so visceral for people and it's so important to talk through. Let's orient ourselves a little bit around conflict. So you spent a career as a Montessori educator, and now you work in the field of conflict resolution. So to me, the connections between that make a lot of sense, but I'd like to hear that in your words. Like, how did you go from being a Montessori educator specifically into conflict resolution?
Well, give you a little background. Back in the early 80s, I attended a workshop on children's creative response to conflict. And so conflict resolution was always built in to building a community at the very beginning of the year. It's a new set of children.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking of your leaders, like you have people you get along with and people you don't get along with. And that's the same thing in a classroom. And so I did a lot of focus at the beginning of the school year on building a community, building connections, building a team. People are in cohorts. And so just where we can see what values are important to each other. And I find that if you're connected with people,
Yeah.
you're more likely to want to work together and solve a problem when you come up with it, right?
Absolutely. I don't know if you know this little known fact, but I actually contributed to building the curriculum for CCRC. Did you know that?
No way.
I remember that because I was learning and teaching experiential education with a team of people, and we got connected to CCRC, Children's Conflict Resolution Center, and we built a bunch of experiential activities for kids and teens to work through conflict, and I loved it.
So that became the foundation for that work. I learned about the importance of building trust and affirmations,
Yeah.
cooperation,
Yeah.
and communication. And the other great part about it is having fun. And so learning things about one another in a fun way, or learning how to build a machine together,
Right.
right? And like, how does that work? And so I took those 3, and then with all the various workshops I've taken, I built 2 other keys perspective taking,
Yes. Okay, we're going to talk about that.
and neuroscience. Like, am I feeling in a triggered place right now or not? So those I developed into the 5 keys.
Okay.
Sometimes when people think of conflict resolution, I find like, okay, tell me the steps. I'm in a conflict.
Yes, right? Right. People want to know, like, okay, what's the roadmap that I follow?
Yeah.
Right. And it can be helpful for sure. But I want to talk about your 5 keys.
Don't we wish it was that easy?
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. I'll just get out my roadmap and I'll just say these things and it'll all work out. Except we are in a unique state of mind, aren't we, when we get into conflict?
Well, not only that, it's like relationships are the key and they're so complex because we're all individuals. So, yes, there's a roadmap. However, what I like to focus on are those parts where do we have trust?
Right.
Do I know you enough to possibly understand some of your needs? Do you understand mine? Because when we look at the roots of conflict, it'll be unmet needs, misunderstandings, right? That is very, very common. And then different perspective. I really, really have learned so much more about perspective taking, and it's fascinating.
Just real quick. If you and I were working together, sitting side by side, and I'm thinking that we're having a difference of opinion, and I'm trying to sort of tease out what that difference of opinion might be or difference of perspective might be, and you're thinking this is a conflict. What's happening for each of us that's bringing us to those different perspectives on the same exact interaction?
If you're feeling like, well, this is just natural, it's part of the conversation, it's part of teasing this out, and I'm feeling this is a conflict.
Yeah.
So we're in 2 different places in how we want to approach going forward.
Yeah. We're feeling different too. Our bodies are right? Our brains are activated differently.
Exactly. That's why the neuroscience comes in, right? So going back to if I feel it's a conflict, then we're looking at the layers of Maryse. How do I deal with conflict?
Yeah.
So if I'm conflict averse, meaning I avoid conflicts, I rather acquiesce,
Mhm.
versus I find conflicts intriguing. Like I can learn more about you. I can get ideas from you because we think differently.
Right.
So which are we in this case?
Oh, wait, let me offer another one, if I may. I love those 2 that you offered up, but how about the other one? Oh, this is a challenge. This is my opportunity to win.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah. This might be an opportunity for me to either crush or be crushed.
yeah. Like
Right?
I want to be right. I grew up with that.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm still in that place with thankfully I'm not, but I grew up with being right was very important. So if you want to crush it and you want to be right, do you know that about me already, Claire?
Oh, okay. So part of it is what you're bringing to the situation, but the other part is, of course, what I know and understand about you and how I relate to that. Okay. Of course. Yeah.
So if you know I'll dig in,
Mhm.
then perhaps a pause. I love the power of a pause. And one of the things that happens is I've learned how to ask for a pause and that we can say, hey, I think I'm feeling a shift right here in how we're interacting. Are you at all? And asking out of curiosity, right?
Right.
Because otherwise people feel like on the defensive. That doesn't help.
Right.
So when you ask for that pause and you check in with the other person,
Yeah.
then it's like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about," and, it escalates, let's say.
Right.
Then you ask for a pause, "I really wanna be able to show my best self right now, and
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little off. Would you mind if we just bookmark this right now? And
Yeah.
I just need to take a body break or get a glass of water. Would you like a glass of water too?" You engage in that needed pause.
Okay. So instead of asking the other person, like, I mean, let's say you ask and you get a response of like, no, 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 everything's fine or something. You can feel it's not fine.
Right.
You just own it and you just say, okay, I need a pause. Yeah.
Exactly. Because we know now enough about how the brain is working that if we're feeling agitated, we're moving away from the thinking brain that neocortex, and we're going into the emotional brain, and we're getting hijacked by that amygdala,
Yeah.
and it's bringing back all the memories that are stored from whatever our background is.
Right. So we feel the situation very uniquely based on our histories, our stories, our past perceptions, our skill sets, what we've been exposed to, all of that brings that moment of you and I are sitting at a table and we're having a conflict, and it looks on the surface like it's about a thing, but really what it's about is about your history, my history, our shared history. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and the history can go way back to childhood, or it could be an hour ago.
Right. Something happened in the parking lot that set me off, and I'm still a little flooded from that. So when you make that comment, I'm reacting. And I'm not actually reacting 100% to what you're saying. I'm reacting to something that happened an hour ago.
Yeah, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's that one last thing. There's actually an activity I did with children in the classroom around that. They loved it because, they love seeing you. And I say they, the children, like adults like to have fun too.
Right. I was going to say earlier, like when I do so much team building work with leadership teams, and, some people resist at first, but if you set it up properly, they come into it, they have a good time. And I think what so many people don't understand is the benefit that goes along with that of letting your guard down a little bit. And like you said, building something together or having a friendly challenge team to team or something like it's fun. We should never outgrow our playfulness, right?
Yeah. And I hear and see and witness that organizations will wait for a special day where we're going to have a team building or we're going to look at bias awareness or we're going to, a focus like that. And why not have it be part of the culture of your organization?
Right. So people come together, they bring their histories, their perspectives. I want to go deeper into your meaning of perspective taking. Share with us, what do you mean when you're saying perspective taking?
So I used to think that everybody thought like me.
Yes, don't we all?
I try to avoid like generalizations, and I think it's true. And I think I want to develop a word or a phrase that we can all refer to, like when we catch ourselves thinking that everybody else is thinking like us. Because as we talk to people about this, they react like you did, like, don't we all? And so if I started with this awareness that sometimes I would create stories about what I expected, how things to unfold,
Yeah.
even within a day, even within an hour. And then they wouldn't unfold that way.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, what's the benefit of having created that story? Some things like you want to prepare for a difficult conversation. So that helped me understand that didn't happen because I thought it was going to happen this way because of my perspective.
Okay.
Then I also learned about how my experiences, my lived experiences, helped me form my perspectives. And as I worked with people in workshops, and now it's through live sessions on the course, I hear people's different perspectives. And they're often rooted based on their history, based on their lived experiences, right? I mean, where else do we get perspective?
Right.
So there are several activities, some that I've designed, some that I've collected and curated, and have people kind of get that, oh, there's a shift there.
Yeah. We don't all see this the same way.
Yeah, it didn't even work the way I thought it was going to work out. And so the more and more experiences I think a person has, then it's like many other things, it opens up an awareness to that particular piece that you're being aware of.
Right. I see two things in there that I think are so critically important. One is the ability to observe one's thoughts and beliefs and to say, oh, what I was just thinking, like you just explained. Oh, I was anticipating. It's the observation of one's own mind. It's the ability to sit and go like, oh, I was just thinking that it was going to go this way and it didn't. Or I'm telling myself that this person is really upset right now, but how do I really know that? Or I'm interpreting their action. Is that interpretation serving me or us or our way forward? Or is that interpretation blocking us? So there's that ability to observe. And then the other thing that I think is so central that I wish every child everywhere or every human, let's just say every person, no matter when they learn it, but is the thing of the ladder of perception, essentially. That the difference between a fact and how I am interpreting that fact. And those two things, go side by side. Like I have to be able to observe my mind to know like, oh, that's my mind. That's not a fact.
Exactly.
But I think these things are so interesting in conflict because we want to double down on what is true. Don't you think? Like, I think a lot of conflict comes down to how we feel and how we act in it, right? But on the surface, it sounds like we've got a difference of opinion about what is a fact. And we spend a lot of effort trying to untangle that so that we arrive at some shared perception of what the facts are.
It can be. I mean, the root of conflicts are, again, multi-layered, right? And that's why in the work that I've done is like, let's pay attention to some of those roots.
Yeah.
And so unmet needs,
Yes.
right? Perception, because I have a perception, or because of my perception, I've made assumptions,
Yes.
and we know where those go. Unless, which I've learned to do, we always assume that everyone else and ourselves are doing our best.
Right. You're doing your best with what you have at the moment. And that's where we are.
Yeah. And I have found leading with that can make such the difference.
How does that sound? How do you lead with that?
Well, it takes being in tune with ourselves, because I think it starts with ourselves, right? Do I feel like I'm doing my best? Do I forgive myself for my mistakes? Because we're human and we're all making mistakes, right?
Right.
And so when I can like admit that I made the mistake, or when I lead with vulnerability and I lead with, I'm not sure how to approach you, Claire, with this kind of situation. I wanted to talk to you about something, but I'm feeling a little awkward and I don't want you to feel awkward.
Yeah.
I'm just going to plunge forward. Is that okay, Claire?
Right. I might make mistakes, but I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, exactly. So if you feel that about yourself and it's an ongoing, right?
Right.
I can feel like, oh, I'm doing my best. And then the day's not turning that way. So that is not my default. I'll admit that. It's something I work at. And so if can feel that, and then I can lead with that with the relationships that I'm a part of, people feel that.
Right.
And I hope, and it's another piece I'm working on, is that they don't feel judged.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the other piece is some people don't want to show that they've made a mistake or they've been judged or they don't feel good about themselves, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah.
See the complexities. Yikes.
We carry our histories with us. And I think it's so important this is why self-awareness and self-knowledge, is so important to our ability to build the trust and build successful relationships, healthy relationships, and manage the things that happen every single day. Conflict, it's always there. It's always going to be there.
Yeah. And then there's some tools, right? There's some great communication tools that helps if we know how to build a bridge and I statements and paraphrasing and active listening, all those kind of communication tools that we talk about.
Absolutely. And isn't that under the desire of those wonderful tools? Like, I feel that the tools of validating and reflecting, validating, I see why you feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, all I'm saying in that moment is I'm not saying I feel the same way. I'm saying I'm listening to you and I can understand how you got where you are now,
Exactly.
you know? And reflecting back, what I hear you saying is this, what I hear you saying is that. Like just demonstrating moment to moment that I have not stolen the spotlight back from you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the Claire show. This is Maryse. Maryse is speaking. I'm here to understand you. I'm going to use these couple of techniques to keep myself in that space of trying to understand where you are coming from before I jump in and start telling you where I am coming from.
Got it. However, when you get the experience, when you've listened to the other person and you've acknowledged, you paraphrase, am I getting this right? And you've got that. Then when you have the experience, when they open up and they are open to listening to you
Yeah.
and you have that like positive feedback of that, then it's like, oh, yeah, listening is fun. The part I like about active listening that I emphasize is how about those conversations that happen in our mind while we're listening?
Right.
Are we really listening? Right? And I catch myself and I'll like not be thinking of how I want to respond, which is the most common thought process that can happen while we're listening.
Right.
And then I catch myself and I remind myself, no, I'm just going to listen to Claire right now. And then whatever I have to say, it's not that important. I really, really want to not only hear, but feel how Claire is right now. And I want you to feel seen.
Right. Oh my gosh. As you're saying this, I'm thinking about so many situations where, like, for example, in investigations in a workplace, and there's so many reasons for this. So this is not meant to be a generalization, but I personally have experienced so many times when people have these breaches in trust and there's investigations going on and things get really quite intense. And at the end, when it's all said and done, what we learn is that the person just wanted a genuine connection, a genuine apology, a genuine, like, I see you and I understand on both sides of whatever is going on. That if that ever finally happens, it resolves so much. It's like letting the pressure out. That's what I deeply yearned for, was to actually be validated. So I don't feel like I'm crazy or that I'm bringing some unreasonable to my requests are not unreasonable, or this or that.
Right. And so, what's an obstacle to that? I'm finding more and more because we're in a work situation and we're working on a pressure and we have a deadline.
Right.
And so, time can actually get in our way. I was just doing a school consultation, and one of the guides in a Montessori program, we call them guides,
Yeah.
teachers, okay, he said, well, I don't feel like I have time. So I do it for the children in whatever it is. And I said,
Yeah.
it's an investment in time.
Yeah.
So when we pause and when we consider the situation before it gets escalated, is to see that I need to invest time, set aside the project, the goal, that time frame,
Right.
and that investment of maybe 5 minutes, it can make such a difference.
Right. So important. I'm conscientious of the fact that we talked about 5 keys and I didn't come back to those. I'd love to have you explain what those 5 keys are and just give us a little bit on each. Tell me about your framework.
I look at trust and a way to affirm people. And so with trust and affirmations, you have a way of building rapport.
So is trust the first key to effective conflict resolution? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I lead with that. And they're all interrelated. It's like, which is most important? They fit together. And at one time within a situation, cooperation is more important, right? Depending on the relationship, right? And so there are so many ways that we can build trust in fun, engaging, interactive ways.
And that should be an ongoing commitment.
Absolutely. So, like building rapport. So, one of my favorites is if you really knew me, you would know that and you fill it in. Okay. You can do that at the beginning of every meeting.
Yeah.
Nobody explains. So, if you really knew me, Claire, you would know that I don't like splashing water on my face. So, as you do this repetitively in like meetings when you meet all the time, at first it's just like, oh, if you knew me, you would know that I've traveled to Costa Rica or whatever.
Right.
But then you can get more vulnerable. And that's when the rapport can be built.
Yeah.
And it just goes around quick. Everybody's got 20 seconds, right? Just to say, if you really knew me. So building trust. Okay. Let's look at cooperation.
Okay.
So with cooperation, it's like you're working on a project and you're wanting to get the ideas from somebody else and your ideas and mesh those ideas working towards the goal of what you're building in that project.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have had interactions where in a fun way you have to cooperate, then you're building that sense of, oh, being open to other people's ideas. You're open to compromise. You're looking for win-win, which is what you're looking for in a conflict.
Right.
I think communication is one that there are lots of workshops out there just on communication, right? On the words we use. However, I love the fact that you and I can use the same word and have different meanings.
Right.
So if I say, just the other day, what does that mean to you?
Right.
Well, believe it or not, in my workshops, I have like a survey and I include months and I include years. Okay.
Okay.
There are people who answer years, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I'll be there soon. Michelle Obama writes, Barack would say, coming home from work, I'll be there soon. I'm on my way. Oh, I'm on my way. What does that mean? So are you actually in the car?
Right. Right.
So unpacking words that we're using, right? It's not all the other things. Then looking at perspective, which we've talked about, having a different lens, right? So we've said they're interrelated. So my understanding of a word is because of my lived experience with that word, my perspectives on that. And for me, what I like to give an opportunity to others to have a perspective shift, right? And so there's some fun things that we do to do that. And then neuroscience. I think if I wasn't so involved in conflict resolution, I get to do this too.
Absolutely. So fascinating.
I'm reading this book, The Awakened Brain by Dr. Lisa Miller, and she writes about fMRIs. I'm just always learning about the brain and then seeing it through the lens of conflict, of like what's going on. And that's the reason for that. Let's take a pause. Let's be able to calm ourselves right before we go forward. Because we know this, I think, is a really great generalization that I can stand by. We've all had experiences that we wish we could do a do-over. We don't like how it went. Could we just lead in a different way? And so we reflect, and mostly it's because while we were in the conflict, we weren't thinking so straight. And then afterwards, we're thinking, oh, I could have said this. I could have said that.
Sure. Yeah. And that's because our brain gets hijacked in a sense. And then there's always something else you could have said or might have said or done. But usually those regrets come from those moments when we've been hijacked and we behave in that way.
Yeah,
That is not the best representation of how we want to be remembered.
exactly. You got it.
So, those 5 keys, basically, you're saying that, like in your workshop, you work through, or in time, it's not always in a workshop setting, but like you're working with a group and you're working with those 5 keys. And those all feel to me very preparatory. Like these are things that we should be working on all the time. We should always be building trust. We should always be thinking through the lens of how do I build trust with those people that I need to work with, that I encounter along the way, that this is sort of a good way of being a good leader. I mean, not everybody has an interest in neuroscience, but we should all sort of be thinking about what it feels like when we're in a reactive space versus what it feels like when we're calm and more open and flexible.
And that's the biggest emphasis within the course is like that difference. Like I'm not looking to, and I don't have the skill to teach people about the brain to that extent, but just how is our brain, is the vagus nerve agitated or not? And sometimes I don't even use like the neocortex. Let's just talk about it as the thinking brain, right? Just versus reptilian brain, people refer to, right? Yeah.
Like some people love that. They love the terminology. They love knowing
Yeah.
that's great and wonderful. But really what we're talking about when it comes to conflict is thinking through what's happening for me. How am I feeling? Am I feeling prepared to do this? Am I going to show up in such a way that will advance things and move us forward? Or am I showing up in such a way that I'm a little bit stuck?
And like you say, it's ongoing. And the most important element for me for all of this is practice. Is got to practice it. Going from the workshops that I used to lead in person, designed an online course, and you have unlimited practice. Rewatch the role plays. Work with your team on looking at scenarios and how would you just practice the scenarios that are listed there, right? And then you know for yourself, like which are the areas, which are the keys that I want to dive into a little bit more.
Right.
Because it's a self-paced, you go to whatever chapter or element that you want to go to.
Love that. Well, so much to unpack here. What would you say would be the real felt benefit of people deciding that they're ready to learn more or be better at conflict in their lives? Because I'm thinking about sort of going through that little Rolodex in my mind of people who obviously have dedicated so much time, effort, and energy to showing up as their best selves. I think our listeners are those people.
I would imagine.
I also think that there's a lot of people who don't find these things to be terribly important in the big scheme of life. And that's okay too. But if you could speak to those folks and tell them what they might experience personally as a benefit, how would you describe that?
Yeah. And for the people who are conflict averse, avoiding conflicts, this is really important. So there's a little element. What are the benefits of conflict resolution? Learning more about yourself.
Yeah.
And then that feeling of, well, sometimes I call it synergy. When you made that connection and you can understand each other and you're kind of feeling like you're speaking the same language, then there's just the acknowledging that relationships are complex, people are complex, and that there's this sense of, for me at this point, like there's intrigue. Like, how can I can show up better because I've learned from you?
Yeah.
And so I encourage people, if they are coming though from a place that, yes, I'm speaking to your leaders, right? And they are getting inspired by other speakers that you have. And we have to just always have that opportunity and that view that life is, yeah, lifelong learning. Like, I want to grow. And so if you just start with baby steps though, because if you're coming from complete conflict averse, just start out with, and this can be with your neighbors, right? Your family, right? Be the one that at Thanksgiving dinner, when maybe, oh, we don't talk about this, we don't talk about that, depending on what or whatever family kind of situation, be the one to say, well, if you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be and why? Oh, I love that one. It unpacks so many things, right?
So take a step forward.
No matter where you are on the scale of things.
Right. Take a step forward. I like that. I think one thing I would add to that just simply is that I'm thinking about the conflict averse type of person. Hello. Hello, my name's Claire, and I have lived a life of being conflict averse, but that you have to sort of look for the win because it can be uncomfortable to step into that space. And it's like, if I'm indexing on how uncomfortable it is, I'm not going to want to do that again. But if I index on instead, I think to myself, okay, what I'm going to look for in this situation is how it feels to be courageous, even if it doesn't go the way I want it to go. Right. So now I'm looking for the little bright sort of silver lining. I'm looking for the right thing that is a reward to myself.
And here's where the brain stuff comes in. Just reading it in this book, visualizing ourselves. And this was important during COVID. Visualizing ourselves traveling could give us that good feeling of traveling, if that's what we were missing.
Right.
So visualizing ourselves in a successful connection, that our brain will help lead us towards that success.
That's so great. So, for our listeners, my kind of final question to you is we all have conflicts. Some people listening may be involved in a conflict currently or anticipating something. What is the one most important thing we can remember going into these conflicts or, in a conflict? Like, what's the one thing you would say to me, Claire, if you can only remember one thing as you enter this space, keep this in mind.
Yeah, you're doing your best and just leading with authenticity, even, just being able to say, I'm not sure how to proceed. And then be open to learning about the other person.
Mm,
We're all engaged for work to like get a project fulfilled, right? Or that kind of thing. But really, it's about people and getting to be better about understanding others and understanding ourselves.
right. At the end of the day,
It's hard to narrow it to one thing. Just do your best every day and be open to growing. It's fun.
love it. Where can people find you, Maryse?
Where you can find me right now for the online course is through kidpower.org/pathways. And otherwise, LinkedIn. I do a little bit on Facebook, but that's my main work. And then that has a link to my email. And you can put the email address in there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This has been lots of fun. I'm happy to do it again with diving into other things if so.
Okay, perfect. Will do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Wow, that was exhilarating. Now, conflict, it's not going away, but how we meet it, that's something we can actually change. Maurice gave us a real roadmap today, and I hope you're walking away with at least one thing you're going to put into action. Thank you, Maurice, for your radical optimism. It is contagious. And friends, Maurice has a live event coming up on March 26th, 2026. It's a deep dive specifically on perspective taking as a tool for conflict resolution. I'll include the link in the show notes. You can find Maryse at kidpower.org/pathways and catch her live on March 26th. Meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe and share. As always, go lead the way, and I'll see you next time.